All right. Hello, Edrico. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Daniel, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. We're recording this on a Sunday. It just hit 12 o'clock, so it's been a pretty slow morning. So I'm feeling good. What about you?
Well, I got sick recently. I'm still sick a little bit, but it started like 2 days ago, and yeah, it's just been not the best feeling, right?
I hope you've been resting because we spoke about that and how important it is for you to rest as well. So I hope you've been resting a bit. Hopefully,
Yeah, maybe.
maybe just a bit.
So today we're gonna be talking about public speaking and why are you on the podcast? Well, I think you could introduce yourself to the public for people who don't know you, but you
Yeah,
should be
sure.
pretty famous.
Uh, yeah, I don't know about the famous part yet, but yeah, I'm Edrico Ambrister. I am the host of the Speaker Secrets podcast. Now, when it comes to like public speaking and things like that, I've had extensive experience in Toastmasters International, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah, I mean, it's just something that is kind of like a personal passion project for me. I enjoy using those skills, learning about it, helping other people learn about it, and things like that. So yeah, I'm excited to be here for sure.
Yeah, because I remember like how we met was on Twitter, and it was exactly through the Speaker Secrets podcast because I was also looking into trying to, I don't think I'm the best at public speaking, but yeah, like I don't know how we came across, but Twitter is like a magical place, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
absolutely.
so have you always been interested in public speaking? Like, was that
I
always
would say
something you wanted to do, or?
I'd say yes and no. I really got into public speaking when I worked for the president of a university. I used to work
Mm,
at a university, and I worked for the president. And during my like tenure of working for him, I realized that there were a lot of events that I had to visit on his behalf and people that I had to address on behalf of the president. And so I said to myself, you know what? In order for me to be successful at my job, and not only this job, but moving forward, I need to improve my communication and public speaking skills. So that really was the inciting event that led me towards doing that. But when I look back over my life, I realized that I've always had some version of public speaking in my life going on. My dad is a pastor, so I think growing up and seeing him and watching him, uh, in a way, it kind of, I guess, planted little seeds inside of me.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Were you always so good at talking though, or was it something that you had to like slowly learn and
I would
develop?
say it is something that I definitely have to develop. I think growing up, I was always like the nerdy kid. So when all of like my friends and stuff like that were on the outside, I mean, sometimes I would join them, but I was the kid that, unfortunately, back then, everybody thought it was lame. But
Yeah.
now it's the dividends are showing, right? So I was always the kid that had a book open or we're doing like puzzle searches or writing poems and stuff like that. So I think the fact that I was always like reading books and expanding my vocabulary and things like that helped me. But it's definitely a skill that you practice and that you become better at through intentional practice and focus.
Okay.
Mm.
Any like personal tips that you have when it comes to public speaking to like for someone
Yeah.
who's like an
So when it
introvert or
comes
like very shy?
Right. Okay. So when it comes to public speaking, right, the first thing that I try to get people to think about is not to just think of public speaking as one person on the stage. Like you're on the stage and you're speaking to an audience, right? I mean, that is a part of public speaking, but you also have things like interviews, for example, or Zoom meetings where you are not necessarily in front of a crowd of people on a stage, but you still have to deliver a message to a group of people. So I think that's the first thing, right? Um, and to also realize that communication is something that we do every day, like from telling your mom a good morning and like a happy birthday and all of that stuff to going through the drive through and communicating what you want to the person. Like communication is something that we use every day. And so when it comes to something that we do every day, it definitely makes sense to find
Develop
out
it.
find out how to be the most effective at it, right? But I would say before you think about anything structural as it relates to public speaking. So, how am I going to address a particular question that was posed to me? Or how am I going to structure the introduction to a speech? All of that, right? I think the mindset is the most important thing. And for me, I would say really adopting an abundance mindset, adopting
Mhm.
a powerful mindset is the most important part of communication and public speaking. And we can definitely talk more about the mindset, but I would say it needs up here. You need to be confident up here before you can be confident in your communication with other people.
Definitely. And I guess you could talk a little bit more about Toastmasters because from what I know is it's like a event or like maybe a club of sorts where
Yeah.
like people like they do public speaking like events and practices and whatever, but like
Yeah.
I like more detail like what is it all about? And like
Yeah. So when I got
yeah.
into Toastmasters. That was right at that time when I decided I need to improve my public speaking skills for my career. And so the way that I did that was I joined this organization called Toastmasters International. And I personally believe that Toastmasters is a very underutilized resource and underrated resource. And basically, what Toastmasters International is, it's this international organization that focuses on helping people develop their public speaking skills and their communication skills. Now, that's the primary focus of the group, but by virtue of being around people that want to better themselves, you also have the
Mhm.
opportunity to network, and you do have the opportunity to be in leadership scenarios as well. Toastmasters is an organization that's in, I think, maybe over 120 countries. So it's something where if you are in Brazil or if you go to Singapore, right, and you don't know
Mhm.
anybody, you can literally show up to a Toastmasters group and network and connect with people there. And the great thing about Toastmasters is you can join no matter what your level is, right? So some
Yeah.
people join Toastmasters because they want to become professional public speakers. Some people are entrepreneurs, so they join Toastmasters because they want to find out how to best pitch themselves and how to be, charismatic in a sales meeting. And then you have some people that have joined just to learn English better. You have people that are
Mm.
in the United States or whatever country, but sometimes they join Toastmasters because they're like, I want to improve English, or I want to deliver this speech at my best friend's wedding and I'm not sure where to go. So it doesn't necessarily have to be something long term or
Mhm.
something where you can only join it if you're looking at a path of public speaking. It's really an opportunity to connect with people, to become better and more confident in your communication skills for whatever you want to do in life.
Okay, great.
Hmm.
What are like some of the things that they do? Like, like when you
Yeah,
go there, what do you do? Like what do
yeah.
they let you
So,
do?
so every Toastmasters club is a little different, right? But you have the club meetings, which most people probably like would attend, right? If you are a Toastmaster, the crux or the main piece of Toastmasters is the Toastmasters meeting, right? But then you also have international speaking competitions, which I participated in. You have speech competitions where you compete with other speakers at the club level. Then I think you go to the area level, the division level, the district level, and then it ultimately culminates in what's called the World Championship of Public Speaking, right? But
Mm.
before that, if you go to a Toastmasters meeting, even though it may vary from club to club, I would say there are three pillars of a Toastmasters meeting. So you have your prepared speeches. So when you
Mm.
attend a Toastmasters meeting, more than likely you're going to have one to two people that are presenting a prepared speech.
Mm-hmm.
Most speeches are like 5 to 7 minutes, but then you do have some speeches that might be like 2 to 3 minutes or 18 to 20 minutes. It just depends on like where that person is in their education program, because
Yeah.
you sign up, everybody gets an education program, right? So you have those two speakers, and then you have the evaluation portion of that meeting where you have people that evaluate your speeches, right? So let's just say, Daniel, you give a 5 to 7 minute speech on the pros and cons of podcasting, right? And
Yeah.
then so that's a 5 to 7 minute speech. And later on in the meeting, I would be your evaluator and I would say, hey, Daniel, these are the things that you did extremely well in your speech. These are some things that you probably could like work on and improve for the next time. But I
Mm.
really liked when you did this. I really liked when you did this. This was really successful. So you get feedback from people on like how to improve your skills, right? And then there's a third part of the meeting that focuses on impromptu speaking. So
Mm.
every Toastmasters meeting has a theme. So let's just say the theme of today's meeting is dogs. There is a part of the meeting that's called table topics, right? So there's one person that is responsible for taking that theme and asking people questions randomly,
Mm.
and the members of the club are expected to respond to that question with an answer between 1 to 2 minutes. So let's just go with that same example. The theme
Okay.
of the meeting is dogs, right? And so let's just say you're not doing a prepared speech today, but you're doing a table topic speech. So I would
Mm-hmm.
say, Daniel, tell me about one of your fondest experience with a dog in your life. And then
Mm.
you would be
I have
required
to like on the spot.
on the spot for like 1 to 2 minutes, right? And then outside of all that, you have roles within the meeting. So you have the Toastmaster, that's the person who's leading the meeting. You have the grammarian, that's the person who introduces the word of the day and kind of listens for proper grammar. Or if you use something that sounds really cool, like if you use like a phrase like the abysmal content of the life of my love or something like that.
Yeah.
That was like a completely stupid example, right? But like if you say something that is like, "Ooh, I like how that sounds," the grammarian would be the one to say, "Hey, I like how you use these words here."
Yeah.
You also have like the ah counter. That's a person who takes note of the filler words that you use. So anytime like you might use like ah or like, some of which I've been using already, right? In this conversation, the ah counter would be the person who makes note of those things. And so
Yeah.
that's a pretty long answer to really illustrate the point that in Toastmasters you have the opportunity to develop a bunch of different skill sets, whether that's putting together prepared speech, whether that's evaluating somebody's speech, whether that's asking people questions on the spot. So definitely contributing to your interview skills, whether that's answering on the spot, listening out for grammar, listening out for ahs and ums, timing people because everything is timed. And so
Yeah.
when you're in Toastmasters, you have the opportunity to develop all these different skill sets. So I know that was a long answer, but I wanted to give people like a taste of what Toastmasters really is.
Yeah. Exactly. And the thing is, with Toastmaster, it has to be in person, like in person, or it
It
can,
doesn't, it
or is there
doesn't
now like virtual?
Yeah.
ones now?
Usually they are in person, but COVID definitely switched that. When we were
Yeah,
not able to meet during COVID, a lot of clubs went online. And now that a lot of clubs are able to meet in person again, many of them have gone to back to the in-person format. Some of them have,
which I think is better. Which I think is
yeah,
better.
yeah,
But it's just like it's just I was just thinking I was just saying that because you know, like I don't believe there's like any Toastmasters in Belize.
okay,
So it's like if it was available,
yeah,
even if it's like online, that would have been like something really nice too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the great thing about the clubs that meet virtually is that you can log on anywhere in the world. So I live in Florida right now, but during COVID, I was considering relocating. I wanted to relocate to Dallas, Texas. And I joined the Best of Dallas Toastmasters. So every Tuesday I would log into Toastmasters and I'd be on Zoom and I was a part of a Toastmasters club in Dallas and I made connections with people that were there. So, even though there might not be a Toastmasters club where you are, you can always go on the website and try to find like online clubs and join people in like Chile or Mexico or Japan or Colorado, wherever. So I think that's the beauty of Toastmasters, that it really is international.
Okay, I definitely have to get on that then because
Yeah, for
I
sure.
was just recording a YouTube video like the other day and I realized how much like and like
Mhm.
I like to say,
Exactly.
as I just said it just now.
And you don't realize it until you're in that situation or until you have someone that points it out and says, "Hey, you say like a lot," or "You say you know a lot." And I
Yeah.
think just the awareness of it helps you to be better.
Like just like it's only been 17 minutes in this podcast and the way you articulate is already like showing a lot about
Really?
like yeah, like you articulate very well.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I think that goes to the mindset thing as well, because even though I'm hearing you say that I articulate well, right? In my mind, I'm like, am I making sense? Am I saying these things right? Right? And I feel like those thoughts happen a lot when we're communicating to people and when we're public speaking, right? It's like, are we making sense? Did I say too much? Is my answer too long? We tend to have all of these like thoughts in our mind. And that's something that I want to challenge all of us to do when it comes to communication and public speaking is to number one of the mindset shifts is to realize it's just a conversation that you're having. You're
Yeah.
just having a conversation with another human being. And so I realize a lot of times we tend to put the other person on a pedestal, especially if we are in a room and we're presenting to like business owners and CEOs and people that are well established in their career. Sometimes we get into that mindset of like, how can I present myself to these people that are so far ahead of me, right? But then it's like when you adopt the mindset of, I'm just having a conversation with these people. I have bills, they have bills. I have
Mhm.
insecurities, they have insecurities. I'm
Yeah.
trying to make it just like them. Like when you put yourself on a level playing field with them, it becomes much more easier, right? And then if possible, you can take it a step further and elevate yourself. And the reason for doing that is because when you're the one who's speaking, when you're the one that's on the stage, that's in a position of power. Like you're doing something that a lot of people, maybe even those people in the room, are not able to do. Like public speaking and speaking in front of people are like one of the top fears of the world. So you can actually switch it instead of saying, "Oh, I'm so nervous. Are these people gonna like me?" To, you know what? I'm actually doing something that's pretty badass. Like I'm conquering my fears. I am moving outside of my comfort zone. I'm sharing myself with these people. And a lot of them would not have the guts to be where I am. So if anything,
Yeah.
I need to give myself a pat on the back for like being brave and being courageous and doing this.
Yeah, exactly. And like for example, people know I do YouTube and stuff like that, and they think that just because I'm doing YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
that my like speaking skills are should be like top notch and like public speaking. Um, when you when you started your podcast, right? That was also to help you get better at speaking, or was it you already was good at speaking and you started it to
Yeah.
help people?
No, it definitely was a mixture of me wanting to help people and me also wanting to improve myself and put myself out there. So the reason why I started the Speaker Secrets was really because initially I wanted to get better at speaking, and I realized that when it comes to communicating and stuff like that, the only way to truly get better at it is
Is
to
to
put it
speak.
in. Yeah, is to speak and to put it into practice. Like you can study like the theory all day long, right? But unless you're putting yourself in those situations, and especially getting feedback, you won't really improve. It's good to have the knowledge, but you have to put it in practice. And I was thinking of like organizations in my city that I could go to and maybe speak at their breakfast meetings and stuff like that. And then I thought to myself, this is local thinking. Like, I'm thinking very small. I
Yeah.
could do a podcast and touch people like all over the world and have an audience that is not just in my city, but yes, in my city, but is all over the United States and all over the world. And I can't remember exactly who it was, but I did. I think it was Robert Greene. His
Yeah.
book Mastery. When I was reading it, he demystified the notion of like an expert, and
Mm,
a lot of a lot of us, I would say, think we have to be at a certain level to be considered an expert. Oh, I have to have this amount of years and this amount of experience, and that could be a part of it. But really, you're an expert. You can consider yourself an expert if you have knowledge in something and you can teach someone else. And so I was like,
yeah.
you know what? I have knowledge in public speaking. Like I've been in Toastmasters. I was the president of my Toastmasters club. And I thought to myself, okay, I might not be the best speaker in the world, but I can help someone else. I can take the knowledge that I have and help someone else. And so that's really how I got into podcasting because I wanted to give myself the opportunity to have a wider audience, but it was really important for me to provide value to people. And I thought that doing a podcast and talking about something that's a big fear for millions of people was a great way to go.
Yeah, and I like the fact that like you did like around I think it's 200 episodes. Is it 200?
Episodes, yeah, I
Yeah,
did.
and it's mostly of you just speaking by yourself, right?
Yeah,
Like not really with guests.
yeah,
And so I have to give you kudos for that because I tried a lot of times to start a podcast like that is mainly like with just me, and I just find that it's hard. It's hard.
yeah. Yeah. And I did throughout my podcast, and I definitely would encourage anybody who's listening to check out the podcast. Obviously, I'm gonna
Yes.
push it because it's mine, but even taking a step back and looking outside of myself, there's some really good content on there.
Yeah.
I've had people from like Australia and Spain, all over the world, reach out to me and say, "Hey, thanks so much. I've used your episodes and the content to help me in my interviews, to help me as a teacher and stuff like that." So I definitely want to push it. But yeah, there have been some episodes there where I have interviewed people as well. And so I think for me, it's important to do a mixture of it, right? You want to be able to hold your own, at least for me.
Hmm.
I think everybody has like their version of what they want their podcast to be, but I
Yeah.
am bringing it back soon. I have some plans to do so, but I think it's important for me to have a space where I share my thoughts and help people from my perspective, but also collaboration. I love talking to people and hearing their side of the story because I feel like everybody, especially those that I invite on my podcast, have value to add to the conversation as well. So thank you
Mm.
for what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm finally getting back into YouTube.
Yeah, yeah, I'm proud of
So
you.
let's move on to, let's say, maybe your top 3 or top 5, like, I guess you could say, techniques or
Hmm.
tips to help
Yeah.
someone like get up to speed. Like, let's say they just wanted to start public speaking and they want to like level up as fast as they can. What are like 3 to 5 like things that they need to do, or like, with their voice, or with their, yeah, like techniques, little techniques that you
Absolutely.
use, that you love.
Yeah, sure. I would say one of the big techniques is power poses. Like body
Mm,
language, focus on your body language because your body language influence how you feel. So one of the power poses that I don't want to stand up and do it right, but one of the power poses is like when you put your hands like right on your
hip.
waist.
Uh-huh.
And you just if you stand like with your hands on your waist or even like your hands up, but I would say Google power poses so you can see what I'm referring to, but get into the habit of like before you speak, whether it's an interview or whatever, take a few minutes to do some deep breathing to calm your nervous system and to also do some power poses because when your body is in like really open positions, it increases your testosterone level, it increases your self confidence. And so I think priming your body and your mind for success is really successful and it helps as well.
Yeah,
Um,
I've been told of that power pose method, like,
yeah.
not even just for like public speaking, but like in
Yeah.
general, just to make you feel ready, like to tackle the day. Like, that's like part of the like a morning routine, a good morning routine.
Yeah. I would
Definitely.
say another thing to keep in mind is to ask yourself what's the takeaway when you're done speaking. What's the one thing or the two things or three things that you want your audience to feel and you want your audience to take away? Or what are the
Mm,
things that you want to convey to them? And I think having a roadmap of what you want the outcome to be will help you to determine like what your key points are. I would say whenever you have to speak, try to develop at least three key points that you want to say. And those key points will kind of like guide your conversation, right?
yeah.
Yeah, so I think that that's definitely important as well, just to kind of like have an idea of what it is that you want to say. And I would also say engagement. Engagement. People like to feel like they're a part of what it is that you're talking about. People don't like to feel lectured, right? And then
Yeah, like the
yeah, you know
typical
what I
like
mean?
school setting.
Yeah, like you're just yapping. You're just yapping, right? So I think finding ways to include your audience in your presentation is always a great way. So, for example, a super easy way to do this is how
Uh-huh.
many of you have had pizza before, for example, or
Mm,
so to ask people to like raise their hands, things like that. What I like to do, I mean that's effective, but some people are a little bashful, especially in public speaking in settings that are public. So even though
mm,
you might ask them to raise their hand, they might be a little hesitant. So what I like to do personally is I like to tell people to imagine something. So I'm like, imagine your perfect, or imagine that you're walking down the street in your favorite city and a stranger comes up to you and offers you a gift. So now you have their attention, right?
yeah.
And I think especially when you have people thinking about, oh, have I done that before? Let me raise my hand. Is that an experience that I've had before? Or if they're imagining something in their mind, now they're engaged, right? Instead of just kind of like just having you blabbering and they're thinking about, oh, well, let me check my text message. I will also say when it
Yeah.
comes to your introduction,
Yeah.
try to get people's attention at the beginning of your introduction. So, for example, give me a topic that I'm talking about, right? And I'll give you an example of a way to do an introduction that gets people thinking and wondering where you're going with this.
Okay, so give you a topic.
Yeah, anything.
Let's say journaling.
Journaling, right? Okay. So the way that you don't want to approach this is to, number one, just go off go off topic, like as far as like just introducing yourself. And the other thing that you don't want to do is to tell people that like you're nervous, right? So let's talk about those two things. I would
Mm-hmm.
say those are no-nos, right? The first thing that you absolutely do not want to do is to start off by saying, hey everybody, I'm so nervous right now. You don't want to start off saying that. Or let's just say you're unprepared, right? You're like, hey everyone, just want to let you know it's been super busy over here. I haven't really had the opportunity to prepare like I want to, but we're gonna do the best that we can today. Even though you might be feeling like that, and you
Yeah.
want them to know so that nobody's judging your performance, right? It's kind
Yeah.
of counterproductive because you've lost them already. Like if you're starting and you're already saying, "Oh, I'm so nervous," or "I'm not prepared," then the other person is checking out. They're like, "Okay," because you're the person in the position of power here, but now you're introducing nervous energy, which shows that you're not confident or things like that. And you might not feel confident, but don't let your audience know that, because your heart might be racing a million miles per hour.
Yeah.
Your mouth might be feeling dry. Your hands might be clammy, but all of that is happening on the inside of you, right? Other people generally can't tell. So you can feel like your world is going to crap. Like, oh my goodness, like my body is acting crazy right now. But other people, you can just be sitting here and having the craziest internal happenings going on, and other people won't know.
Yeah, unless you
Unless
tell them.
unless you
Yeah.
tell them,
Yeah,
unless
a lot of times like friends would come up to me and be um like they would say something about like what they're wearing or like, like or something related to them, right? And then I would be like, if you had never told me that, I would not have noticed. But now that
exactly.
you've told me that, I'm
Now
noticing all of your
there,
little imperfections or
exactly. I
yeah.
didn't notice that stain on your shirt, but now that you mention it, I can't notice it.
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
exactly. And then also like sometimes when I'm playing the piano and like I know I made a mistake,
Yeah,
uh, the person on the listening end has no clue that I made a mistake
exactly,
unless I
exactly.
told them and then they're like, "Oh, you did?" Okay.
Exactly, exactly. And so in a lot of cases our mind tells us, "Oh, tell them because that's how you feel." But if you don't, you can, be nervous and even like make mistakes and the other person would say, "Wow, that was phenomenal. You did amazing." Um so that's one way you don't want to start an introduction, right? I would say another way that you maybe want to avoid, that sometimes it's easy to fall into, is to just say, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Edrico Ambrister, and today I am so excited to talk about journey. How many times have we heard that? It's just like,
Yeah.
as soon as someone,
It sounds
we
kind
heard,
of generic.
yeah, and it's like, as soon as someone says that, I'm like, here we go. You know what I mean? Because it's like, everybody says that. You know what I mean? It's kind of like we've come to expect that. So
Yeah.
so I would say if you can like introduce a quote or someone like, or you can tell someone to like imagine something. So let's just say you're doing a speech and it's on journaling, right? An introduction can be like, she cried. She felt as though her heart was being broken, that it was being trampled on, that it was no longer good. But afterwards, she felt incredible. And she asked herself, where has this been all my life? Hello, everyone. My name is Edrico Ambrister, and
I love
today,
how you just brought that up from the
yeah,
ground
and
up like nothing.
today, because when you start to talk about someone's heart being trampled, and she feels like the world is ending, but now she feels amazing. The people that you're talking to is like,
What is
who are
happening?
you
Yeah.
talking? Who are you talking about? Like, why is her heart trembled? Like, what is it that made her feel as though now she's like this amazing person? And then you go into journaling, right? And so it's not always easy to do that. But I would say, even if you don't come up with a scenario or something, come up with a quote or a statistic. Like, and this is just random statistic.
Yeah.
The U.S. Journal of whatever says that only 32% of humans journal on a regular basis. Are you a part of that 32%? No judgment.
And then people.
If you are, yeah, but it's like, so it's kind of like you want to introduce something, and that's something that I look for too in YouTube creators. And I said, when I uh, start my YouTube channel, I think I want to start my videos like that. So instead of starting my videos like, hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, it's just like I'm gonna start off with like a quote or like just something random where it's just like
Yeah.
when people click on my video,
They get
they
a
don't
quote.
know they don't know what the first thing is I'm gonna say. It can be a
No.
quote, it can be me singing, it can be a blooper, it can be whatever. So you do that first, get their attention, and
Yeah.
then you go into the introduction of what you're talking about. So yeah, that's those are some tips.
Okay. Have you ever heard of what's call it? The moth?
The moth,
Yeah, it's
like
apparently like
butterfly.
an organization. Yeah, it's like an organization that like it's similar. I would say maybe similar to Toastmasters, but they specialize in storytelling.
Okay,
And so like basically it's like similar to like little TED Talks, right?
okay,
About people sharing their story
the moth.
about something, and like it's similar in terms of like public speaking.
Okay, hmm.
But you
Never
never
heard
heard
about
of it?
No, I've never heard about that. The moth. I'm gonna write that
Yeah,
down somewhere. Okay, the
yeah.
moth.
Let me see. Let me find. Right now, let me just
Interesting. Yeah, but definitely since we kind of are in that vein of like tips and stuff like that, I would say
yeah,
that's another tip as well, is to tell things in stories.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's something that I am working on as a communicator, is to put things in stories, because people connect with stories, and you're able to have people retain your message if you tell it in a story. Because for me, sometimes I think very logically, so it makes
uh-huh.
sense to want to like give data and give facts, right? But
Yeah.
if you give those data and facts in a story, people tend to remember that. So it's really important for storytelling and
Have you read the book Storyworthy by
story
Matthew
worthy.
Dix? Yeah, I think it's
No,
Matthew Dix.
look at you. You have all of the resources, man. I need to learn from you.
Yeah, no, the thing is, I was trying to improve my storytelling, not necessarily public speaking, but like storytelling, because I feel like I'm that creator
Yeah.
that you mentioned previously, where it's like, hello, welcome to my channel, that type of, and
Mhm.
like there's a little lack of a bit of personality,
Mhm.
and so I that's why I looked up the moth. The moth is actually a podcast
Okay.
where it's like just stories, 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 stories. And then they
Okay.
even have a book which I bought the audiobook. It's supposed to help you
Okay.
um, form better stories, but I haven't finished it. But
Mm,
one thing from the book Storyworthy by Matthew Dix is there's an exercise that it proposes to help you notice more stories in your
mhm.
daily life,
Okay.
right? So basically, what you're gonna do is every day, at the end of the day, you write like a sentence or two about something that happened, right? It could be anything. So like it could be like, oh, I went outside and you know, a dog came by and jumped, or something like that. Like
Mhm.
or like I went and I picked up my sister and we had a nice coffee and stuff like that. Or like I was talking to somebody and he mentioned this funny thing, right? So it's kind of like journaling in a sense, but
Mhm.
you're tailoring it to make sure that you have a story every day,
Yeah.
so that you build your catalog. Because a lot of the times, like with all this journaling and stuff, it's basically to document your life, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if you don't, you won't remember,
Right.
and you'll think that you have no personality, but
Yeah. Mm,
if you write a sentence every day about something that happened to you that day, then you start building your catalog of stories, and with the stories you can start using that, like, even within your public speaking.
absolutely. I like that
Yeah,
idea. I never thought about that, but I'll
yeah,
definitely be using that because that's kind of tied into what I was going to say when it comes to storytelling. You don't have to go far. We have our own stories, like especially those of us that are, let's just say, over the legal age of 18. You've had stories
yeah,
of like life experiences, right? And so I think when it comes to storytelling, sometimes it seems like this big mythical creature or this thing that you have to like
yeah.
overcome, but in a lot of ways it's just like just honestly recounting your life. Like, and even if you don't want to put your name on it, you can swap your experience out with like someone else's name, or it can be based in reality, it can be a fictional. So it just depends on it's a creative thing, but I think focusing on telling stories is definitely a great thing to
Skill to
use.
have, yeah.
Yeah, to use in communication, and that's something that I'm working on in my storytelling as well. I want to tell more stories and have people become more imaginative while I'm speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing, so like if someone wanted to do something right now, right, to improve their public speaking, and like they're not doing Toastmasters, they're not doing anything like that, like what can they do? Like
Yeah.
what's something you think they can do right now, like simple?
Get on YouTube. Get on
Yeah,
YouTube.
start
Listen
talking
to
on
this
YouTube.
podcast. Listen to this podcast. Which if you're listening to this podcast and watching it, you're already making those steps, right? But I would say expose yourself to the information because you don't know what you don't know until you know it, right? So watch this podcast. After this, go on YouTube, like type in best tips for public speaking, how to improve your communication. Go on Spotify or Apple Podcast, or read an article online. There's so much information out there that a lot of us, we really don't have an excuse to say we don't know anything. So I would say the best place to start is to educate yourself. And then once you educate yourself, try to put it into practice. Whatever you learn, practice it with your brother or your sister or your mom or your partner or your coworker and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
You won't,
Because
yeah.
what I noticed too, like for me, I feel like I'm not that great at storytelling,
Mhm.
and the reason I think about that, or the reason I think that, is because, like, let's say I'm in a group of friends, right, and we're all talking about something, right? I'm usually the one that is mostly the listener
Yeah.
in the conversation. I don't really say anything, and so like I don't know, maybe that could be like my fear of public speaking. Maybe that could be like me thinking that I don't have anything, I don't have anything to share.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely, I guess like one of the simplest things you can do is just tell someone a story.
Yeah.
Tell someone about something.
Yeah.
You know, like what I really love to do, like nowadays, like with this podcast, is like at least having one deep conversation with somebody
Mm-hmm.
every week, right? Which is like the main goal of this podcast,
Okay.
right? Just having inspiring conversations, because a lot of times we could go like weeks without actually talking or doing any type of speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, definitely that could be something you could do, like just um go and tell someone about something, right?
Sure.
Maybe
Yeah.
something that you found, or
Yeah.
maybe it could even be a meme or a reel, but like
Mm-hmm.
like talk
Yeah, and
about
you can
it.
tell them, talk about it, and then think of all like the aspects of that thing. So how did you find it, or what about that thing intrigued you to like look into it? How did it
Yeah,
make you feel? Like, what were your takeaways from it? Did it inspire you to think better? Did it make you think more deeply and things like that? So I think when it comes to storytelling, analyzing your experience with something is like the best way to go. Like, how do I feel about this? Do I like it? Do I not like it? Why not? Do I have a bias about this? What can I learn? So asking yourself the probing questions allows you to definitely inform your storytelling a bit more as well. So I,
yeah.
I think that's another thing to get to know yourself better, because the more you know yourself, the better you can articulate how you feel about something.
I think one of the best things, like I think we mentioned already, like one of the best things you could do to improve your like public speaking and like speaking in general is just start YouTube, start a podcast, start listening to your
Mhm.
voice, start
Yeah,
noticing, like, because I don't know how you edit your podcast, but like, you're listening to your voice all the time, repeating,
yeah,
repeating. And like a lot of people don't like listening to the sound of their voice.
I know. Yeah.
And so like being a creator basically and having to expose yourself to your voice, I think
Mhm.
increases your confidence as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
because
then,
I used to not like I did not like my voice on video, and like I still kind of don't, but like I've had compliments before, like they say, "Oh, your voice is so nice," or whatever. But
well, I would say that that's the thing, right? When it comes to communication or public speaking, everybody gets nervous. Like
yeah,
that's a human reaction, right? The majority of people don't like how their voice sounds. A lot of people have imposter syndrome. So all of these things that you feel when you are getting ready to speak, like, oh, I'm nervous, I don't know if I'm going to do that well, overthinking it, all of us do it. But the difference between those that still perform successfully versus those that don't is that those that perform successfully still show up, still
hmm
push through all of those like negative emotions. So
hmm
even like when you're nervous or you have imposter syndrome, and you're kind of like second guessing yourself, still showing up and still moving forward is the way to get better. Like I I don't know if as speakers or as communicators, if we're ever going to get to a space as being human beings where where we don't have any nerves at all, where we're just like, I'm completely confident, I'm completely fine, I'm not nervous at all. I don't know if that's realistic. So it's more so looking at that and using it as a springboard to push you forward. You know what I mean? So if your heart is beating fast, instead of looking at it and saying, "Oh, I'm nervous," it's more so like, you know what? My body is supporting me right now. My heart is beating faster to increase the blood flow to my brain because my body wants me to do well. Or my body is feeling nervous right now. It's going into like a flight or fight type of situation because I'm doing something that is pushing myself out of my comfort zone. If I was comfortable, my body would not be doing this. But the fact that I am taking a leap and pushing myself forward and challenging myself professionally and personally, my body's like, whoa, what you doing? Like we're not used to this. So all of the stuff that's happening, all of the thoughts and stuff, that just shows you that you're pushing forward and you're doing what you're supposed to do. So it's more empowering when you feel nervous and you feel that imposter syndrome showing up because you're like, that means I'm pushing past my limits.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Definitely public speaking could like reach to all parts of your life,
Yeah.
right? Like for example, I'm currently trying to start like a business, and one thing that I've never had to do before is like pitch to people.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
And like yeah, and so like I've started to learn more about, pitching and how to like get myself across better. And so like yeah, there's so much benefits when it comes to public speaking in your personal life,
Absolutely. Yeah.
your relationships, communication. Yeah.
Yeah. It can only help. It can never hurt. It can only help.
Yeah. Okay, and for for those who think, I think you two might be a little bit too much of a step, but let's say they wanted to start a podcast, right? Like what are some of the things that like you think are basic, like to quickly start a podcast, right? Like what do you
Yeah.
use? Because I think
Well,
you have a simple setup.
yeah, I do have a simple setup. So I had to take a break from podcasting for to handle some personal stuff, but that's a completely separate conversation, right? But I would say
Yeah.
if you want a super simple setup, they have like apps. For example, the Anchor app. You can literally download Anchor on your phone and just record on your phone and post it to I think Anchor definitely houses your podcast, but I think it also goes to Spotify and some other places. So Anchor
Yeah.
is super simple. You can just download it and start recording. I know when I first started my podcast, I went to the route of buying a microphone, finding a podcast hosting website, finding like a software editor. So when I started out, I did the whole thing where I had a website that hosted my podcast. I had like an audio editor software called Audacity. So open Audacity, press play, speak into my mic, and my audio file would be in Audacity. I would edit it, then I would transport it and upload it and things like that. So that's for people that want, I guess, a quote unquote more professional feel, or maybe have more time to like edit, or maybe have the resources where they can pay someone to edit. So you can definitely get a setup where you're like, I'm finding a hosting platform. I'm downloading audio software, video software to edit and things like that. But if you want to be super simple, just go to Anchor. And like now, even through this podcast, you introduced me to something new that we use, this YouTube podcast software called like Riverside. I didn't even know about this.
Yeah,
Um,
I really love it because it
mhm.
just makes everything simple,
Oh,
especially
yeah.
for remote podcasts. Because thing is, I love podcasting, and I wish I had like more physical guests, but
Mhm.
sometimes that's just not possible.
Mhm.
And so this makes it easier to like just record everything here.
Yeah.
You know, right now you're kind of blurry on my screen. I'm not sure why, but
Mhm.
that's not the recording that's gonna be sent.
Okay.
That's just
I hope. I hope not.
yeah. And
If I'm
plus,
blurry, y'all, please forgive me. I know. I mean, we're uh, pretty much like almost to the end of the podcast for me to say this, but I appreciate you viewing, no matter what, no matter what.
no, don't
Um,
worry. It's not gonna be blurry.
okay,
I took a screenshot just so you can see how blurry you look.
okay,
I'm not. Maybe
but
maybe it's the
yeah,
camera. I don't know.
possibly. But I would say, and then I don't have the best lighting in here as well. But anyway, I would say Anchor and stuff like Riverside Podcast. I mean, there are a lot
So
of apps out there that make it super simple. where you really just have to show up and record. So I would say anybody that wants to get started, start at Anchor and see how you like it.
Yeah, just use your computer.
Yeah,
Anchor is free.
yeah,
Audacity is free.
yeah,
I think the only real investment you have to make is most likely a mic. You
yeah,
want to evolve from the phone at
yeah,
least.
yeah.
But yeah, like this mic right here. Guess how much it is. Let me bring it into view.
$50, $70.
I think it is 70, but
Okay.
it was on sale for like 50. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, and it sounds really good. Really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, it does sound good. I need to invest in another mic as well.
Yeah, because because there's two types of mics. There's like dynamic and condenser. I don't know if you
Mhm.
oops. That's Apple's
Oh no.
features.
That's okay.
But yeah, like I used to have a Blue Yeti, and it was not the best because the Blue Yeti is a condenser, right? And so the condensers are great for like recording more of the sound in their environment,
Hmm.
but as a result, it catches everything, like from the street to the
Oh
one
yeah.
for the person outside, you
Yeah.
know. And then this is a dynamic, which only is like for podcasting. It's like
Oh, okay.
radio. Like if I
Okay.
move forward, like the sound will just start to like disappear.
Oh
But
yeah.
anyway, if I'm
Okay.
right beside it, it just sounds good, and it doesn't like I have like one thing what I like about this dynamic is I can now turn on my fan or like my AC and have it like running in the background, and it won't pick it up.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
it might pick it up a little bit, but it's not enough to like be
Yeah,
of
to
any
really
issue.
impact the recording. Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of times, like when you're recording, you have like big lights and you have no fan on because you don't want the sound of your fan, and then you get hot
Yeah.
and you start sweating.
Okay. I
Yeah,
learned something today too. So thank you.
but what are you using?
So right now I'm not using any type of mic. I'm using the mic on this laptop.
Really?
Yeah.
It sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is
Yeah.
it like the latest Mac, or is it like
It's a MacBook Air. I don't think it's the latest one, but yeah.
it sounds really good? But then
Thank.
also Riverside also does little things like remove background noise
Oh, okay.
and
Well, that's good.
stuff.
Yeah, but I do want to invest in a dynamic mic as well. I definitely am looking at, because like I said, I took a break from podcasting for just a bit to focus on some personal things, but I'm ready to bring it back. So I'm looking
Yeah,
at,
2024, it's time.
yes, of course. So I'm looking at definitely investing in that dynamic mic that you mentioned for sure.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Um, am I'm wondering like what else to say? Oh, I think we could talk about one more thing before we leave,
sure.
and that is public speaking in the digital era.
Mm,
Yeah, like when it comes to
mm.
Zoom
Oh
and
yeah.
like,
Oh
you
man.
know, what are your thoughts on that? Like
Yeah.
public speaking in the digital era?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a skill set to develop now, right? Because we've had to really transition into using Zoom and all of these other like video conferencing softwares because of COVID, right? And so now that's a part of the landscape. And I feel like a lot of organizations or people, whatever, they've realized that and there's definitely benefit to in-person meetings and things like that in events, but there's also great benefit to having things virtually because now you can increase your audience where people in different states and different countries can attend, right? And so I think now that's a skill set that where before COVID a lot of people weren't really focused on, and it's that much more important to really use some of the skills that we've spoken about today. So engaging people with having them like imagine things or asking them to participate and things like that, because when you have people on Zoom, it's really easy where someone's on Zoom, but they're also like checking their texts on the side, right? Or they also have a browser up and things like that. So
Yeah.
you're competing with all of these with their thoughts, with their kids, with their cell phones and stuff like that. And so it's definitely important when it comes to, in my opinion, when you're communicating via Zoom or whatever, to be present, to be intentional, maybe even more so present and intentional than you would be in person, only because you have all of those barriers. But I think once you have that same mindset, as far as it's just a conversation, I'm connecting with these people, I'm the one that's really speaking and putting my best foot forward, and so I'm patting myself on the back for that. I'm not gonna be perfect. um, it's just have fun with it. I'd say when it comes to these type of meetings, have fun. I don't know about you, but I feel like that's what's missing in a lot of these online meetings. So that we get
Yeah.
on and everybody's like, "Oh, you don't want to be here" and stuff like that. But if you're a presenter, like, engage your people, have fun, make sure that they're like, "Okay, this isn't just another pointless meeting."
Yeah. You know what they say about meetings with no food?
Oh gosh, I know, right?
It should be an email.
Yeah, for sure. But I think, yeah, with all of these tips, and personally, I do believe that there's a bunch of information out there when it comes to how to put an introduction together, how to increase your body language and your eye contact, and there's a lot of information over there. But I do definitely, at the end of the day, the biggest takeaway that I want our listeners to really kind of like take home is that your mindset is the most important thing. Like, before you communicate, get your mindset together. Get your mindset.
Yeah. Okay.
And let it be to a position where you're empowering yourself, where you're not allowing yourself to be like, I'm nervous, I'm not gonna do well. No, it's like, no, I got this. I got this. Even if you don't feel it, tell yourself, you got this, you got this, you got this.
Okay. Any resources that you want to leave the people with before we go?
The
Like
Speaker
things to
Secrets
check out?
podcast, the
Of
Speaker
course.
Secrets podcast. So make sure you get on Google and just type in the Speaker Secrets podcast by Edrico Ambrister. It's on
Yeah.
Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and some other places as well. But once you hit Google, you'll definitely see it there. I mean, of course, there's some other podcasts out there, but I think I
No,
would
your one's
love,
pretty good. It's like
yeah,
it's not
yeah, I
not
would
not, not too
love.
long, not too long, lot of good lot of information and tips in like just
Thank
a small short amount of time. And plus you
you.
have 200 to go through, so
Yeah.
you
And then the
probably
thing about it is, a lot of them are focused on public speaking, but then I also wanted to not just focus on public speaking and communication, but focus on other things as well, because I feel like the the better you are as a person all around, everything influences everything, right? So if you're a person where you're feeling more well rested, or you feel like you're more focused, or you're a person who you're working on emotionally regulating yourself, like when someone pisses you off, right? Or like, how do you respond to that? Little things like that, like becoming a more well-rounded person, helps you with your communication. So that's one thing I like about the podcast, is that it's centered in communication, but I also am very big on focusing on things like mindset, health, how do you feel about yourself, because all of those things inform how you communicate and how you perform in public speaking settings.
it's so true.
Yeah.
Well, all right then. Well, thank you for coming on this podcast, Edrico.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I
Mi-
definitely appreciate it. And thank you for the opportunity. And I'm looking forward to doing more of these with you, with anybody out there that, might find it interesting or helpful to have me come on their podcast as well. But I'm also looking forward to listening in and watching some of the other interviews you have coming up as well.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Daniel. I definitely appreciate your time.
All right. Make sure to follow Edrico everywhere. You know what's funny is like when I was researching for this podcast, like I didn't mention your name. I didn't mention nothing. I typed into like ChatGPT or something, and they were like, "You should check out the Speaker Secrets podcast by Edrico Ambrister."
ChatGPT knows. AI is becoming more prevalent in our society, and if I didn't know that AI knew about me, which in a way
Yeah,
I should have known. But I mean,
they even knew you were like Toastmasters and XYZ and like
that's crazy. That
like
actually can be a little bit concerning, but I'm happy that they know that the podcast that I produce is a good resource. It's a great resource,
yeah,
actually.
because I typed in talking points for a podcast about public speaking, right? I expected it to give me like pointers, but it gave me like things to check out. So yeah,
I love that.
so you're doing things.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, all right.
All right.